Hello and welcome. I am Scriberlock. This is City of Heroes. We're with Liberty Lass, our level 46 brute character who has 3 million XP to go to get to level 47 in her next and second to last superpower. And we are doing another timed mission for Unai Kemen to go and close some more multi-dimensional portals. I still have about a day and a half left before I can cancel out Tina's DPS reading mission and then um, hopefully actually progress on that story arc. But in the meantime, we'll keep working on Unai Kemen and play some City of Heroes and do some chatting about things. So one of the things I wanted to mention is somebody was saying in the comments we were talking about, what things they would change, and um, it was ODX. I can't remember who, so I apologize. Said, well, I have really bad luck, and I get these horrible miss streaks. Even when it's 95% chance, I'll still miss 2 or 3 times in a row. I feel you. I feel your pain. That happens to me too. You guys have seen it up here, right? When it says 95% and I still miss a couple times in a row. Even a streak breaker, you end up having the maximum number of misses before the streak breaker kicks in. And I think he said something like, if you didn't have bad luck, a friend of his or sibling or whatever said if you didn't have bad luck, you wouldn't have any luck at all. And like, yeah, I had a really good friend. My luck isn't that terrible usually, at least not in role-playing games and dice. But we had a friend. We played Champions, and I used to say to him, "You ought to take the unluck disadvantage. Take yourself 3d6 of unluck because your character plays as if you have it anyway. You may as well get the points." And he said, "No, that'll make it worse, because then I'll, every time I roll for unluck, it'll hit." Because the way it works in Champions, if you have luck, whenever a lucky break could possibly happen, um, you have to you can the GM can have you roll a die, and if you get a 6, something extra lucky happens. And if you have multiple um, dice of luck, up to 3, which is the max, you can have up to 3 sixes, right, which would be 3 levels of luck, and a really lucky break happens to you. It's like getting a Benny in Savage Worlds or what have you, and or a success with a raise or a couple of raises. And in with unluck, which is a disadvantage, whenever things are going well for you, you have to roll unluck, and if you roll ones, you get levels of unluck, and if you roll multiple ones, you get multiple levels, and you get up to 3d6 of unluck. And I used to joke around that this was, by the way, the best GM. He never was unlucky when he was GMing, only when he was a player. It always works that way, guys. I can tell you as a game master, I crit succeed way more often when I'm GMing, way more frequently, more higher percentage of the time, not just frequently. Obviously, more frequently because you roll more as a GM, but the frequency of my crit success is much higher and crit fails is much lower as a game master than as a player, and he definitely experienced that. And I used to joke around that he had, like, in real life, he had 17 day 6 of unluck because he's just always unlucky. And he said, I'm that much unluck. Where are all the superpowers I get from all those points of disadvantages? I said, I don't know. One night we were playing Champions, and in Champions, um, high is bad when you're rolling to hit or making a skill check. It's a roll under system. So you roll 3d6 as a check, and it's usually around 11 or less to succeed, maybe a 10 or less, maybe 12 or less, 13 or less, 8 or less, depending on, the skill versus skill situation. What's your OCV and offensive combat value versus their defensive combat value, skill versus skill checks, and so on. But you're looking at around somewhere on the order of about a 9 to 12, and you want to roll under that number. And if you roll under, oh, there's a boss. We should fight him, right? Yeah, let's fight the boss. If you roll because low numbers are good, the lower the better. If you roll a natural 3, it is an automatic hit or an automatic success. And if you roll a natural 18, it is an automatic failure. Now, the advantage of this is that it can happen, but it's super rare. We knew the numbers, right? 1 at a 216 chance. It didn't happen very often that you would roll triple sixes, right? It would happen to you once over the course of a summer, right? How many attack rolls do you make in this, or skill rolls do you make in a single session? Maybe 20, right? So it'd take 10 or 15 sessions before you're gonna be in a position to, see multiple triple sixes. And this guy, the good Rob, was a player, and I was also a player. I can't remember who was GMing. Maybe I was GMing, because it was usually either me, him, or this other guy who was a friend of ours. And so the good Rob rolled some. It was some like really easy thing, like 15 or less, and he rolled an 18, and we're like, oh man. And then he was doing some sort of a skill check, and again, it was easy, 13 or less. He rolled another 18, and we're like, oh my gosh, another one. And then, not that long later, he rolled a third 18. Now, he didn't roll 3 in a row. He rolled 3 out of, maybe 10 or 12 rolls. But the third one, everybody moved away from him and was like, don't touch us. We don't touch our dice. Don't touch us. Don't come anywhere near us. We do not want your unluck to rub off. Yeah. So I definitely know all about that kind of thing. I never had it that bad, but the good Rob did when he wasn't GMing. And I remember he did it twice in a row on another night, and somebody said, "Why can't you do that when you're the game master?" And he's like, "Well, it wouldn't be unlucky when I'm the game master, right? It would be lucky for you guys, I'm not trying to kill you when I'm the game master, so accidentally rolling, a 3 and then doing all this extra damage, because I got lucky damage rolls is like that's the unlucky thing when I'm the GM because I'm not trying to beat you guys. So it was really funny. And that comment about being kind of like being Mr. Unlucky, that made me think of the guy who was the Mr. Unlucky in our group, the good Rob. He's an awesome guy, but super unlucky with dice and card games. Oh man. You don't want him as your teammate in Uno or something like that, or Bridge. Oh, he's going to get just the absolute worst hand he could possibly get. The poor guy, always so unlucky. And by the way, awesome chess player. And I remember him saying one of the reasons he felt like he did so well at chess is there's no random element involved. The only random element is whether you're the white or black color. And he was equally good at both colors, so it didn't matter. So yeah, he loved chess and checkers because there really wasn't a random element to those games, and so it was just about skill and strategy. And he was really good. He had great strategy. He knew how to play games. He was very good tactically. But the thing is, it's hard to be good tactically when you're rolling triple 18s in a single night. That was very funny. Now, fortunately for him, it didn't cost his character that much. It was just blundering misses in what should have been a fairly easy battle. And since it was fairly easy, the rest of the characters who weren't being unlucky were able to pick up the slack. Another dimension. Does this guy ever give a story arc? It doesn't look like it. Maybe we're going to have to hit some of these other people. Let's try Harvey Mailer once we're done with this mission. Because otherwise it's just empty XP. It's like empty calories. Our character's getting fatter and gaining calories without any nutrition. Because we're not doing story arcs, and the story arcs are what give us the reward merits, and we still need over 100, right? 106 reward merits to finish that set. Then I was thinking, we're at level 47 now at this point. We've got all of the slots in of everything that's important. I really should start working on sets. And I gotta check it. I think you can get some sets from the merit vendors too, but the problem is I don't have any merits. I need them for the ATO, so I don't know if you can get them without even more reward merits. Paragon protectors. So we gotta stun these guys, because otherwise all of them can go into a mini moment of glory. It's just they're not as extreme as the bosses and lieutenants the bosses in particular. So this is going to be Cray. So this is what frustrates me a little bit. We're on +2, right? So we're on +2. So the I ignore them when they go into Moment of Glory, as you guys know, because it's no point. We'll come back. One of the things that annoys me is we're on +2, and on +2, like the minions are nothing. Even the lieutenants are nothing. Even the regular bosses are nothing. But if we get into an elite boss or something, then it becomes impossible. And that's sort of what frustrates me is that, I just wish I could get to a comfort level where everything was reasonably challenging but not too hard. Can we get this guy before he buffs up? Or has he already buffed? Okay. But yeah, anyway, if we go back to the luck, I totally sympathize with the idea of feeling like you're very unlucky and miss streaks with 95% chance to hit. Oh yes. You will see that in this very mission, I'm sure, if you watch. So just watch these numbers and when I get the miss streaks and you'll see it. Hey, I'm the one who does energy or energy melee over there. Stop using it against me. Yeah, so this character is doing pretty well. I can't quite succeed on +3s, and I think what I need for that is really to get a few more sets in and try to like beef up these defenses because some of them just aren't quite strong enough against like it's not against minions and stuff. Even red or purple minions are nothing. It's really more against like the bosses and elite bosses, particularly elite bosses. It's very hard to take down +3 elite bosses, mostly just because of their regen ability and their resistance, because you do like 30% less damage, like roughly 10% less damage per level above you that they are. And so you're already doing, like, it's almost like they've all got 30% base resistance to you because of the bonus from being higher level, right? And then on top of that, they have really fast hit point regen if they're elite bosses. The other thing, and I didn't think to mention this, I've mentioned this before, but I didn't think to mention it during the Madam of Mystery. Why am I only at 52% to hit this guy? There are two kinds of elite bosses in the game. I've mentioned this a couple times before, but for anybody who's new to the channel and hasn't watched anything but Liberty Lass, there are two types of elite bosses. Elite bosses are not original to the game. When the game first launched, you had minions, you had lieutenants, and you had regular bosses. Then you had arch villains. And so most story arcs after Dr. Vajilok, which is the first one, most story arcs from Dr. Vajilok on, which is the level 15 to 19 story arc, the ending boss, the final guy you have to beat, is an arch villain. And so what this meant was, because archvillains regen so fast and have so much toughness and resistance, it's very, very difficult for most characters to solo them. Some scrappers and tankers could, but early on, like the blasters had no defenses, there were no sets, right, to give them resistance, so they had nothing. They were glass cannons. They could not overcome the boss's resistances and defenses and stuff before the boss just wiped them. Defenders couldn't do enough damage because they just don't do that much damage. Controllers don't do a lot of damage, and they couldn't mez them. And so it became... now, I don't want to say nobody could do it, but it was nearly impossible for the overwhelming majority of the player base to beat archvillains solo, right? And so this frustrated players because you could do an entire story arc by yourself, and then when you came to the final mission, you didn't always, especially when you were new, like when everybody was new to the game, you came to the final mission, you didn't know there was an archvillain, you didn't maybe know that it was the final mission, right? Because they don't always tell you in a story arc. It's not always clear that this is the last mission. Sometimes you think there's going to be more to it. And so, as a consequence, a lot of times people would get to the end of a mission and all of a sudden they're confronting an archvillain and they would get annoyed because now I've got to go out of the mission and go find people to help me before the mission timer ticks down if it's a time mission, etc., because I can't beat this stupid archvillain by myself, right? And so people would help you, but it was frustrating. I could do the entire story arc of 16 missions all by myself, defeating everybody no problem. Then I get to the archvillain and I have no chance. And so what they did was they created a rank in between the boss and the archvillain that we now know of as the elite boss. Right? And the idea is it's sort of halfway in between. It's powerful enough that it's more than a boss, but it's weak enough that you can solo it if it's about even level or +1 to you, and if you've got the right set of inspirations and you know what you're doing and you've got a well set up character, right? You got the right enhancements on your character and stuff. You're not sitting around with Dios at level 45 and stuff like that. You can take an elite boss out. And so then what they did was two different things. For the existing story arcs, like Dr. Vajilak, like the Madam of Mystery, like Ubelman, they took the villains at the end, right? And they downgraded them to elite bosses. And then for a lot of the other missions, they made villains that were elite bosses as kind of the default, and then you could, with the difficulty settings, upgrade them to archvillains if you wanted to fight an archvillain. And so there's sort of a qualitative and a quantitative difference between among the different types of archvillains. There are two types, right? There's or elite bosses, between different elite bosses. There's the downgraded elite boss, the elite boss that's an archvillain downgraded to an elite boss. And there's the elite boss that can be upgraded to an archvillain, right? But it sort of defaults to an elite boss. And the ones that are elite bosses by design are beatable. So Chernobog is an elite boss. I don't know that I think maybe the first time I went at him I lost to him because I didn't know it was an elite boss. But because they didn't used to have elite bosses at that low of a level, and so the very first time I fought him, I think I might have face planted because I didn't realize, right? Didn't realize I needed, a sufficient number of inspirations and stuff like that. And so, let's go down this other corridor. So if you blunder into an elite boss without realizing there's an elite boss here, you could get owned because you don't have the right inspirations and you're not ready for it, and you just blunder into it. But elite bosses are pretty well beatable. They're just tougher bosses if they're designed to be elite bosses initially. But the ones that are downgraded archvillains are much more powerful. Okay, he's floored me, so we'll just switch targets. And so the Madam of Mystery and Dr. Vajilak and why am I so slow here? What's debuffing me? Spines, okay. And some of the other ones are archvillains that had just been downgraded. And mostly what they did was they reduced their hit point regeneration to a level that is not so insane that you can't overcome it because you simply can't do enough damage. And they reduced how much damage they do, but they otherwise kept them pretty well the same. Right? So they have a similar amount of resistance. I think they have a little bit fewer hit points. Right? But they're definitely we go right here. They're definitely stronger than an elite boss that was designed from the ground up to be an elite boss. Look at all the missing. So I'm purposely going after the guys with more hit points here because those guys are not in their mini moment of glory. Yeah, so all these guys are not worth fighting. And it's not a defeat all, there's no clues here. So I'm just going to leave. Bye. We'll come back to them if it turns out we need to fight them, but I don't think we do. Yeah, again, I think you have to question the design decision of making it so that a minion can turn on a power and floor an amped up, buffed up, fully enhanced, better than SO enhanced um, player character just by turning on a single power, and make it so that it's so pointless to even attack them that you just walk away. Like, a single power shouldn't be able to do that. That's why I try to keep them disoriented if I can, but, you know, again, there's no way to guarantee the disorientation. So yeah, so if you're playing City of Heroes and you notice, hey, I just did a story arc with an elite boss and I was able to solo them at say +2, and then I did this other story arc and I just got crushed. I had no chance. It wasn't like it was close. I had absolutely no chance. Sometimes it's just that that villain is resistant to what you can do and has the weakness that you have, has your weakness. That can happen. But a lot of times what it means is, in the case where you didn't have that hard of a time, you were fighting an enemy that was designed to be from the ground up an elite boss. And in the second case, you were fighting one that was an arch villain that got debuffed into an elite boss so that it was possible to beat it. But it's not easy to beat those, and you can definitely see a difference with this character against the elite bosses that were meant to be elite bosses, and ones like the last episode, where it's or the Envoy of Shadows, right, where that guy was an arch villain, and he would completely blindside you. He'd be in a mission you didn't even know he was in there, and bam, and you get creamed. And even as an elite boss, he's very tough. And usually I have to lower that mission to +0. Right? He's just too tough to take him on at +2. Nosferatu is the same way. So all the ones that were originally arch villains, and I think Nosferatu is one as well, are almost impossible to take out above +1. At least for me, right? Now, I mean, obviously, if you've done the real power designing of your character where you have sets and everything and they all are perfect and you've got all the procs and everything, in that case, you probably could beat a higher level arch villain. But if you're just doing a normal, like, SO-based build, arch villain, not arch villains, elite bosses are going to be really hard to face at, like, in some cases, maybe impossible to beat at +2 or 3. Just because of how fast their hit points regen and how much resistance they have, and how much damage they do to you. So I don't see anything down here. We really don't need to defeat all these guys in the middle, so we'll just, right, because they don't have anything in here that they're protecting. No. So we'll just keep going. Okay. You coming? Guys? Haha. Oh, and totally different subject. I was watching a video. I don't know how it ended up in my feed. Planet Coaster, and it was somebody who had designed this really cool park, and they were take. It was it was somebody who likes cool park designs, and I guess puts them on their YouTube channel, and they do a tour. And he was take the audience on a tour of this other designer's really cool park. And I was watching that. Oh man, what a cool design! I used to love Roller Coaster Tycoon when I was a lot younger. I was in postdoc, I guess. I used to play Roller Coaster Tycoon 4, no 3, Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, RCT 3, and there were two supplements to it: the like water park supplement and the animal park supplement that I really loved. When you put them all together, it was super fun, and I used to love designing parks. And I was watching that, and I thought, man, I remember when Planet Coaster came out, and I said someday I'm going to get it, and I never did. And I looked at the release date, and man, that was 8 years ago that thing came out. And there are a bunch of DLCs for it, and I guess there are a lot of modding tools for it. The modding community is always so great in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. I used to really enjoy that game. But man, it takes so much time. The one park that the guy was taking you on a tour through, um, the person said he's a city planner, like in real life, so that makes him good at a good designer. He couldn't get Roller Coaster Tycoon at first because his computer wouldn't play it because it was just too high intense resource. But now he can, right? This was a couple years ago, and so he got it in like 2020, I guess, during the pandemic. And he said he spent 1,200 hours designing this park over 19 months. And I did the math on that. It was about 62 or 3 hours a month. 63 hours a month. That's 2 hours a day, every day without fail. That is a lot of time. And I'm looking at this because I'm looking at it going, why couldn't I ever build park? I mean, Roller Coaster Tycoon's a slightly different game, obviously, than Planet Coaster because it's older. But I'm like, why couldn't I get parks this awesome, this well designed? Well, because I didn't put 1,200 hours into them, right? When one of my parks was actually called Hero City, and it was designed based on the idea of Paragon City, and different zones. And then in the different zones, I had different superheroes. But because people wouldn't know who the other superheroes that like my made-up superheroes are. I didn't have like Liberty Last Land and that kind of thing. Instead, I had like the DC part of the park with Superman ride and the Batman ride and the Wonder Woman ride, stuff like that. And then I had a Marvel part of the park with Captain America and Iron Man and stuff. And I themed the rides and everything. And I thought it was pretty cool and it looked pretty good, but it was nowhere near as good as what this guy did. And it was nowhere near as good as what some other people would do. And like I built that whole park. In the time I was building that park, the one guy who was a really good designer, and at this point there was no videos. Like you couldn't. I don't even know if YouTube existed, but if it did, you couldn't post big videos at that point. So people were just posting screenshots of their rides in their parks on the Frontier Games forum, the official forum. So there was a forum for post your parks, and this one guy, his park, like I designed 3 or 4 different parks over the course of a couple years. He was still doing one. It was not finished yet, but it was so much better than mine. And I remember that in the time it took me to design the entire park of Hero City, and that was so big that it brought my computer to its knees, and I couldn't finish it. And I actually posted an apology and said, guys, I can't, like the last section of the park that was going to be this other really cool ride, I can't do because I'm getting like 1 frame per second when I try to edit the park. And everybody's like, yeah, we understand. But while I was doing that, he spent his whole time doing a single ride that was one of these, I don't know what the word for it is. It had tracks, but it doesn't have a lot of like, you can't do inversions and you can't do, where you go upside down or twists or high speed angles. You can't, you can kind of go up and down, but only with these gentle slopes, and it can't go high speed. So it's sort of on tracks, but it's meant to be kind of something like a haunted house or Mr. Toad's Wild Ride or something like that, rather than a roller coaster. I can't remember the name of that ride type, and I never really liked them because I was like, what do you do with them? And he created this awesome underwater thing using like so it looked like you were underwater. You weren't really underwater, but the tracks like took you down into this grotto, and it was like mermaids, and there were fish down there. It was so cool, and he had all these great pictures. And in the time it took me to do one single, um, in the time it took me to do my whole park, he did one single ride, and it was so good. But the reason it was so good is that he was spending as many hours as it took me to do a whole entire park to do one ride, right? So if, say, that park took me, I don't know, 150, 200 hours, he spent 200 hours on one ride in one section of his park. And that's why it was so good. And I've never been quite, I want to say, patient enough for that, right? I always want to like move on to the next thing and finish the park and everything. I always remember they used to do these challenges. I don't know what Planet Coaster does, but in Roller Coaster Tycoon, that you started with a park and it gave you like a certain amount of starting money, and you had a set of goals that you had to reach. And the first one was called Vanilla Sky, and it was just sort of a very vanilla, generic park. But then I remember one of my favorite ones was, um, oh gosh, I can't remember the name. It was a Crater Lake, I think, and it was supposed to be where like a spaceship had crashed and the government had hidden it, and then the government moved the spaceship and sold the park to you, and you had to like build a park and get a certain amount of income to pay the government back. And it was just a really cool terrain, and so I made everything like a science fiction theme, and it was that you were supposed to do. And then there was one that was a really cool Western theme challenge, where you basically just end up with a patch of desert. So there was a lot of really cool. There were a lot of really cool challenges. No story arc, so we're gonna leave this guy alone. There were a lot of really cool challenges, uh, but my part of my problem is I would get so focused on completing the next step of the challenge that I didn't. I would end up disappointed in the aesthetic design of my park. It's like, okay, this ride technically meets the challenge, but it's not very realistic. And sometimes the challenges forced you to do that, right? It might say by the second year after you open, have this much income, and so you have to put in rides that are going to bring in a good income, because if you don't, you're not going to get the challenge done, right? Let's go to Harvey Mailer. Let's see if he's got anything for us. And I remember one of them was like a haunted park. It was like a horror theme, and I had a really cool ride, but it had to have a certain amount of intensity to it, which has to do with like the jump, like the drops and the spins and stuff. And defeat all villains. Um, Brickstown. So I had to like basically rip part of the park out. I had already gotten the checks for like the scenery, so I didn't need them anymore. And I had to like rip down a really cool part of the park to build a bigger part of that roller coaster, even though it was a really cool roller coaster, because the intensity of the roller coaster that I could get in the space I had was only 4.8, and it had to be over a 5.0 or whatever the number was. And so I had to like, I needed a bigger amount of distance to get a higher hill to get a deeper drop to increase the intensity, just that little 2/10, just to reach the challenge, which of course made the park aesthetically worse. So sometimes those challenges used to really frustrate me. And I'm sure there were probably better ways to do that, but as a very um, amateur, shall we call it, park designer in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, I wasn't able to figure it out. I do remember I played through the campaign and I struggled with it, and I often just did the bare minimum just to get the points. And then I spent a lot of time. I bought, the additional updates, like the DLC came out, and I bought those. This was on DVDs, by the way. There was no Steam back then, and or if there was, I wasn't aware of it. And I was, I played around with a lot of it. I did a lot of, and I did all the challenges all the way through all of those expansions, and then I did my own custom parks. And I stopped playing it for a while. And then when I came back to it, I said, I'm going to do the campaign over again. And just, I'm a little rusty. Let me just get back into remembering how to do stuff. Because the campaign is partially a tutorial as well. Because it'll say, like, make sure the park is clean. So you've got to put enough janitors in. And make sure the rides are in good repair. And it gives you a scenario where the rides are old and they're more likely to break down. And you got to get the mechanics in there and get them to do their patrols and repair the rides. So it reminds you, it teaches you how to play the game as you go through the challenges, which is pretty cool. And so um, I went through, and having got a lot of experience before that with my, like designing my sandbox parks and everything, if it turned out that the challenges were like trivial. I remember in Vanilla Sky, I think you had to have a certain, either certain income or a certain number of people. That was the final challenge. Get at least so many thousand people or 100 people or whatever in the park. And I couldn't. The first time I went through it, it took me forever to get to it. I remember quitting out, coming back, trying other scenarios, coming back to it. It took me a really long time. And I don't know if I ever finished it the first time I played the campaign. I probably did, but it was a real struggle for me. After designing my own sandboxes and getting much better at the game, I went in and I was like, why is this hard? I like blew right through it. Like didn't even have the park, I think, half finished. I remember the first time I went through it, I was running out of room and I couldn't put enough rides in there to get the intensity of the rides up to attract enough people to come to the park. And this second time through, after I had so much more experience with the game, I was like, I'm only about 2/3 of the way. Like a third of the park was just blank space, right? I hadn't put anything there, and I already had the campaign the thing finished. So I said, well, I'm just going to keep going and fill up the park. So I really miss Roller Coaster Tycoon. It was the same people, I think, built Planet Coaster. Maybe I should just get that game. I don't know. There's all these. I looked at it. There are all these expansions, and when you add them all up, they're pretty expensive. I should probably just put it on my wish list, and then when it goes on sale, grab it. I've been playing a lot of Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts. I put about 16 hours into that game. I've been having a lot of fun with that. There's a lot of annoyances, and there are some bugs, but it's a pretty good game. I started as Japan in the 1790s. 1890s, not 1790s. Japan in 1890, and I'm now in like 1905 or something. And I remember like when I first started to play. Sometimes when I first started to play games, I get like almost like a little nervous about it, which is silly. Like, am I going to do a good job on the game? Am I going to get beat? I don't want to lose. And I thought, what difference does it make, right? First of all, nobody's going to see it but me. It's not like I'm doing a Let's Play and I'm going to be embarrassed. And second of all, who cares? You lose, right? What's the big deal? But I've been watching these Let's Plays, and particularly the one guy, Brother Monroe, who does, who is doing the Dreadnought Improvement Project, which is an attempt to improve the game, and it's a mod, and he's testing it, and yeah, he's like way better at the game than I could ever be. So you watch somebody like that, and you go, I can't really do that. Well, what difference does it make? It doesn't matter. And so I finally had this, almost like an epiphany or whatever. I said to myself, you know what? My goal with this game is that each time I play a campaign starting in 1890, I'm going to get further. Right? So wherever I get this first time doesn't matter. Actually, if I get beat early, it's kind of a good thing because it'll be easier to beat myself the next time. So I'm in 05, 06, and okay, if Japan gets wiped out, I had one war so far against Spain. I took the Philippines from them. And Guam, I think. And they have 3 more islands in the Pacific. They're getting pounded by the Americans, I think, right now, on the other side of the world. And they only have a fleet of about 8 ships, and I have a fleet of like 70 ships. So I said, yeah, let me see if I can antagonize them a little bit, get into another war against them, see if I can take those other 3 islands in the Pacific. I don't need to conquer the world in this playthrough. I just want to get as far as I can get. I mean, if I could get to the end, which is 1965, great. And still have my nation intact. That'd be awesome. But if I get wiped out in 1930, that's fine. My goal for the next run will be, to get a little further. So I've been enjoying that game. Once I kind of freed myself of the worry that I might not win. first time through. Like, who cares? So you don't win. What difference does it make? Um, but it's a cool game, but it's a strategy game. This is a role playing game. I kind of feel like I would maybe like some sort of a building game, like a city builder or whatever. Manor Lords, I think, is about to come out. I've been interested in that for a while too. But I'm such a fan of the roller coaster thing, and the main hesitation I have is, and I think you can see this still on my channel. I did some Planet Zoo, and oh god, that game was so friggin' bugged, and I don't know if they've ever fixed it. And I worry that since it's the same company with the same basic mechanism for the peeps, which is what they call the people that move through the park, right? The little NPCs. That's why I stopped playing. I loved Planet Zoo as a game. The campaign challenges, some of them were really annoying, and again, some of them you couldn't actually do good aesthetic design because the needs of the campaign mission wouldn't let you. But I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. I don't care that much, but I can still enjoy it and do the aesthetic parts later once I do a sandbox. But what really drove me nuts was that the peeps, the little NPCs, were um, they wouldn't move through the park. So I think there might even still be some videos up. I don't remember if I posted them. It might be that I recorded them, and because I often have 3 or 4 or 5 or even maybe half a dozen or more episodes waiting that haven't been posted yet, just to see how things are going. And oh, we gotta kill this guy. Man, takes 3 hits to take out a red sapper. I wonder if they have extra resistance or something. I didn't pay attention. Anyway, you might be able to see it. I don't remember if I posted it or not, but I think I recorded it. Anyway, what was happening was I could not earn money. The park was going bankrupt, and the reason and what made me notice it was at this one particular challenge, you had to earn a certain amount of money on the rides, right, and the attractions, like the zoo attractions, and I couldn't earn the money, and I didn't understand what was going on, and then the I was having a lot of trouble with trash and stuff like that, and the janitors couldn't move through the park, and so what was happening, and this was super annoying, and apparently it's like a known bug that, at least at the time it happened, had not been fixed in a long, long time. Right? It had been known for a long time and never addressed. The peeps would get caught in a spot on the path, and they would just start moving like just spinning in a circle. And once one of them got caught there, then another one would get caught like in his little loop, almost like almost like it was a little black hole, and they were all getting sucked into it. And there would end up being like hundreds of them just swarming around. And I remember you could pick them up and move them and drop them somewhere else. And I remember going in there and picking up a family of 4, dropping them out, picking up a family of 3, dropping them out, picking up a family of 4, dropping them out, picking up a boyfriend and girlfriend, dropping them out, picking up a solo guy, dropping them out. And I must have done this, and I was counting, and I must have done like 300, and there was still a whole bunch of them swarming around. You just couldn't even see how many were in there. And so, like, then the solution was supposedly shut down the park, wait till everybody leaves, delete that part of the path, and reconnect it. I tried that. They just got caught up there again, right? So then, okay, delete that part of a path and make 2 paths that go around that spot. Something's wrong with that spot. They got caught up on both paths and stuck. I don't know what the problem was, and it was right inside the entrance. It's like I couldn't make money in the zoo because people were coming in, they were paying to come into the park, getting stuck, and then they couldn't leave. They were unhappy. They couldn't find. I can't get to the bathroom. My bladder feels like it's going to burst. I'm so hungry. I'm starving to death. I'm thirsty because they couldn't leave to go to the concession stands, go to the restroom, go to the rides, leave the park, etc. They just got stuck in this like vortex. And as far as I know, that was never fixed in Planet Zoo. And so because it's the same basic code, I think, as Planet Coaster, I do worry that I'm going to pay all this money and end up with a game that is just that has that same exact game-breaking flaw, and it is a game-breaking flaw. You can't. Once it happens, the one guy actually said none of these fixes work, and he said once this happens in your park, you basically need to delete the park and start over. And you don't know, like they couldn't figure out. He said, I don't know what triggers it. I've been trying to figure out what triggers it, and I've never been able to figure it out. And he said, it just doesn't seem to matter how you design the park or what you do. If this happens, then you're screwed. And then the other thing that happened to me is you could give zones to like the janitors and the maintenance people, and I ran into a problem where they would assign the zone. It said it was assigned properly, and they just ignored it, and they never serviced one of the attractions, and so it just kept breaking down. And I would like reload the save and try again and start the campaign mission over again and everything. And every time there were just a couple of rides they wouldn't service, and they kept breaking down, or attractions, not rides, because it was the zoo. So I used to like. If it's going to be bugged like that, I'm not going to pay a lot of money for a game that's bugged like that, or pay any money at all. So, one thing I definitely would have to do is investigate. Making sure there's not a sapper here. One thing I would definitely need to do is investigate whether it's got those same kind of bugs that Planet Zoo had, since it's the same company. And I think a lot of it's the same code base, right? I assume that the AI and the pathfinding and stuff for the peeps is the same across both games, but maybe not. I'm gonna ignore that gun because it can't do anything to me. Oh wait, this is defeat all. It might count, and they never despawn either. Well, we'll see. If we need it, we'll go back to it. So these guys are level 49, which means they're very close to the maximum that could be had in the game when it launched, right? One of the reasons that they had for not being able to do a difficulty slider was that they did not make mobs over level 50. I'll just get this thing. So if you had the mission set to +1 or +2, there was no way to do that back then, but if you'd had it, once you got to level 49, that would stop, right? It wouldn't be +2 anymore. 50 was the max. And once you got to 50, everything was white cons. The minions. Because that was all the game could do. And so one of the things they had to do when they gave you the plus, right, was they had to start allowing the villains to go up to 52nd level. And I can't remember, if anybody remembers, please post it in the comments. But there was some issue with it where they felt like they couldn't actually get it, get the NPCs to go over level 50, that it was going to screw something up. I can't, if anybody can remember what the argument was, that they didn't have an algorithm, or that the algorithm wouldn't scale properly or something if it went over level 50. And I can't remember what that argument was and why they initially didn't want to do, why they didn't want to allow you to set the missions on +1 or +2, because they were struggling with how to have mobs be over level 50. If anybody can remember what that argument was or why that was an issue, let us know, because I don't remember. I remember it was an issue, but I don't remember why. So if anybody remembers, post in the comments and let us know. All right, we're going to go back to Harvey Mailer. We're going to go ahead and finish up this mission, and then we will stop for the day. We've got almost 4 beads into level 46. I think the next episode will probably be me working on Tina McIntyre, because I should be able to clear that DPS mission, and then we need to get it done, because I think we're not going to be able to get level 40, over level 48 missions from her. So we need to get this done before the end of level 46. I'm not in any particular worry about making sure we get every single story arc in the level 45 to 50 range because I don't really like these story arcs as much as the older ones. Let's take a look. We want to look at recipes. IO set. Let's look for, let's see, melee damage. We have one of the crushing impacts. So you need a few reward merits for these. It's not as many. So we might be able, but what you have to realize is like every one or two of these is a story arc. So I don't know, right? I don't know if we're going to be able to get them. Maybe Crushing Impact is cheap on the auction house because you can buy them that way. Let's see. Do we have... How much does it cost? Crushing Impact. Let's just see level 50. What does it cost? Oh, they don't cost that much. Oh, okay. Well, wait a minute now. Let's all right. Let's go. We'll do a couple things. Let's go to the let's go to Harvey Mailer and. Oh wait, I got to Peregrine Island. What a waste to come back here. Yeah, we need to go to the base. While we're in the base, let's take a look at which crushing impact I have. Maybe we can go ahead and get these as recipes right now from the vendor, from the auction house, if they're not too expensive. I have accuracy, damage, recharge. All right, so let's go out to the auction house. Let's go to Harvey, and then we'll check the auction house, and let's take a look at this and see if we can maybe assemble well, we can get the recipes. Don't know if we're going to have the orange salvage we're going to need to actually put them together. Oftentimes, there's a gotcha, right? You go, oh, the recipes aren't that expensive. You go ahead and get the recipes, and then you find out that the orange salvage to make the recipes is going to cost you 10 million total when you add them all up, right? So that's frequently the gotcha. But I could see getting the recipes and at least start working towards them. You got a store that we can sell this stuff? Let's just get rid of these things. And then, yeah, no story arc from him. So we're gonna wait for Tina. But let's check out the old auction house, and I'm gonna fly back to near the base portal so that we can. Now the right way to do this. Let's see if I can do the right way to do this. All right, so let's see. AH. So Crushing Impact, level 50 Crushing Impact. It needs Ruby Fortune, a Ruby, a Fortune, and a Chaos Theorem. I'm going to write these down. Let's do this the right way. Okay. Same for level 49, I assume. Yeah. And Chaos Theorem. Well, it's only a yellow. Okay, well maybe this is not so bad then. All right, so that's accuracy, damage. And we have accuracy, damage, recharge. That's this one. Let's look at accuracy, damage, endurance. That requires Spirit Thorn, Never Melting Ice, and Pneumatic Piston. We need to check that one because I don't have that one on me. Then we have this. Damage endurance requires another Spirit Thorn, another Never Melting Ice, and we have enough of those, and gold. So we need to check if we have that, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to just check and see if we have everything in the base to actually make these. So that's damage endurance. Then damage endurance recharge. That one needs fortune, another fortune, so we need 2 of those, and we have them. Another ruby, and a psionic threat report, which we have. So far we're okay. We just need 2 things. That's damage endurance recharge, and then damage recharge is demonic threat report, regenerating flesh, and destiny. So what we want to do is look in the base and see if we have destiny, pneumatic piston, and gold. If we do, we should be able to make crushing impact as a set. And yeah, I'll take it at 49. I don't mind that. Let's check it out. So this is the right way to do it. Rather than buying all these things, make sure you can actually make them. So let's see. What do we need? We need pneumatic piston, gold, and destiny. And I don't remember what's what. Okay, so we got gold. Let's grab those. So we have gold. We need a pneumatic piston and destiny. Sonic threat report. Well, let's grab another one of those in case we need it. Okay, is this over here? Yeah, it doesn't look like it. We might have it down below. There's destiny. So we just need a pneumatic threat report, or pneumatic piston. Okay, there it is. Okay, I actually think we have enough to actually get this set, to make the set if we get it. So now I have to head out because you can't do the auction house inside the base, I believe. I should have checked that, but I'm pretty sure you can't. So let's go ahead. I wish they had like a little thing like the vault where you could just click on in the base and just do the auction house from in your base. But we can do it out here. Okay, so let's see. What we want is everything but accuracy, damage, recharge. So we do not want that one, but we want accuracy, damage. So let's go to here. Level 49. They're going for 15,000. 25,000. Let's see if we can get it. No, not 250, just 25. So we got that one. So that's accuracy, damage. So now we need accuracy, damage, endurance. Level 49. Let's, again, I don't mind paying 25,000 for each. That's fine. Okay, that's 2. Let me check recipes here. I didn't happen to pick one up extra, did I? I did not. Okay. So let's do, so we have accuracy, damage, recharge, damage, endurance, right? I mean, I don't mind paying like 100K, 125K for all these. That's nothing. So that is, what did we just do here? We have accuracy, damage, endurance. We have this one, damage, endurance. So now we just need these two. I always end up worrying that, because I have done it before, I'm going to buy 2 of one and none of the other. There's tons of these for sale, so we should be able to get these. We'll come back to that one. Then this last one. So these not enough? Really? Okay, let's try a little higher. I mean, there's 2,400 for sale. I can't imagine that that's not enough. $200 bidding, 800 for sale. Huh. Okay, let's try a little bit higher. 100,000. This is the right one, right? This one yet? Okay, that's fine. And there we go. All right, so the total cost is about 250,000. Now it's gonna. So let's see. We haven't had to pay anything for the salvage. We should be okay on the salvage, I think, because we checked it all, and we have everything we need. So we should be able to make these and just pay the influence cost. So let's see. Three of them cost 25, and two of them cost 100. So it's been 275,000 so far, and then it's going to cost about 200,000 for each one of these that we're going to make here, right? So five of them, so it's about 1.25 million plus, so it's about 1.5 million to make this whole set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we have crushing impact. So let's see, what are we going to put this on? So this is going to give us, when we're done, it's going to give us improved smashing and lethal resistance, which is good. Increased maximum health, improves accuracy of everything by 7%. That'll help against the missing because it's base accuracy improvement. And then recharge time improves, and toxic and sonic resistance goes up. So that's really good. So what are we going to put this one on? So I think we're going to put our other ATO probably on barrage, because if there's a proc on it, and there might be. So what does this do? What else does it do? Fury bonus, right? Every time you do something with this, every time you use it, you get a fury bonus, right? So you don't want to put it on something like energy transfer because they don't use it as often. So I think the same thing is going to be true. Our ATO is going to go either on a barrage or energy punch. So let's put crushing impact on the other one. This will also give us, let's see, 20%, 40%, 67% recharge reduction. So right now we're on 34% recharge reduction, so it will be better, and 38% endurance cost. And this is going to give us 21, 45, about 60% reduced endurance. I think this is going to be good on total focus. So we want to get the recharge. So the total focus, the recharge time is 14 seconds. So hopefully we can improve that, and the endurance is 13. So let's try it. Let's rip these out. And let's go ahead and put crushing impact in here. So let's see, we've reduced the endurance cost to 11 and the recharge time to 11.9. Accuracy is still 2, and damage looks good. Right, so our average damage is like 100%, 67% on all the other stuff. So that's as good as it can be. And this also means that our smashing and lethal resistance have gone up. So if we exit out of here, our smashing and lethal resistance are now up a little bit, and our sonic defense, I think, is up. Toxic and sonic resistance is up a little bit, and what else went up? Our max health and our accuracy and recharge time, which we don't have listed up here. Okay, well, that's our first regular set. That wasn't too bad. Maybe we'll keep doing that. Maybe each level I'll try to get another set in. Doesn't cost any reward merits, and it only costs us like 1.5 million or something, which isn't too bad. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and until next time, I am Scrapper Lock, and this has been City of Heroes.